Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Continuing on with Sunday NFL Week 16. Off to a good start this week. I crushed the Rams game, and then I went 1-1 today, but the Steelers was actually a bigger bet for me. So, yeah, I'm having a good Week 16. Also, this week going well for me in NBA and bowl season as well. Let's keep that rolling. I start off the Saturday so hot. I just lost Utah, and I lost the Bills too. So, came crashing down a little bit, but still having a winning day, having a great week. Let's roll.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, Detroit's on the road in Minnesota. Vikes are catching 3 at home. That number's been bet down from 4. I actually think it was at 4.5 at some point. Been down at 3 for most of the week, though. Total sitting at 47.5. Public's pretty split in this one. It was on the Lions early. It's looking like it's about 50-50 now. Data is showing sharp action, definitely leaning towards the Vikings, which would make sense because the number's been bet down from 4 to 3. So let's talk injuries, and the Lions offense has 0. Not a single injury designation on this offense, completely healthy, everyone active for Detroit. Can't say the same for the defense, though. The Lions defense has been dealing with injuries all year. Gardner Johnson still on the IR. Mosley out for the season now, I believe. McNeil also on the IR on the defensive line. Derek Barnes and Jerry Jacobs both listed as questionable. Barnes is probably going to play, but Jacobs hasn't practiced all week, so that Detroit secondary is already so thin. I mean, they really can't afford to lose another corner right now. On the Minnesota side, Madison's listed as questionable. He hasn't practiced this week, so it's looking like he won't be active, but it kind of looks like Ty Chandler may have temporarily won the RB1 job there anyway. Right tackle Brian O'Neill also listed as questionable. He hasn't practiced this week either, so it looks like there's a good chance he may be out. Vikings defense has injuries everywhere, but it's actually not as bad as it looks at first glance. First, some good news. Looks like Jordan Hicks is back off the IR at linebacker. He hasn't played since early November, so that's good. A lot of question marks here. Byron Murphy at corner, Harrison Phillips at defensive tackle. Neither of those guys have practiced this week, so their status is up in the air. But Bullard and Hunter both were on the practice field on Thursday, so I would imagine both of those guys play. So let's match these two teams up on the field, and we'll start with Jared Goff and the Lions passing offense. Goff was coming off a terrible game against Chicago. Really responded in a great way against Denver last week. He shredded Denver's secondary to pieces. 24-34, over 70% completions, 278 yards, 5 touchdowns, 8.2 yards per attempt, 134.6 passer rating. I had the Lions -4 in that game. I loved every single second of it. Goff had it working. Something I want to point out here, last season we talked a lot about Jared Goff's home-away splits, right? Like he was the best quarterback in the NFL at home at Ford Field, not the case away from home. But really, if you take a look at the numbers this year and pretty much over the course of his career, it's really indoors and outdoors. Out of his 7 road games this year, 2 have been indoors, and those games have been good. Over 67% completions, 9.4 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, no picks, a 120 passer rating. So those are road games, but they were indoors. In his 5 outdoor games, 63.6% completions, yards per attempt way down, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, and an 82 passer rating. So it's the outdoors. That's where we really see Jared Goff's numbers plummet. This game's obviously indoors because they're in Minnesota. They've got a dome. But how does Jared Goff match up against this Vikings defense? And we'll start off with coverage scheme. Vikings, what do we know about them? They run a ton of zone, and they blitz a lot. Nobody blitzes more than the Minnesota defense. We'll start with the zone coverage. That's a bad angle for Jared Goff because he's been much better against man. 6th in passer rating, 4th in completion percentage, 4th in net yards per attempt. Against man coverage, against zone, those numbers drop to 11th, 18th, and 11th. So he hasn't been terrible against zone, but he's been much more efficient against man coverage. Next question, how has Jared Goff been against the blitz? Because the Vikings blitz at a 50% rate. 50% blitz rate, that's the highest in the NFL. Goff, when blitzed this year amongst 41 qualified quarterbacks, 29th in completion percentage, 18th, 29th, 28th, 19th. When not blitzed, 3rd, 8th, 1st, 4th, and 3rd. So another negative split there for Jared Goff. He's better against man, and he's better when not blitzed. That is not the splits you want to see when you're playing this Minnesota Vikings defense that blitzes a lot and runs a ton of zone. And keep in mind, this is a Vikings pass defense that's really come to life. And they started off the season slow, too. In weeks 1 through 5, they were 21st in EPA per pass play, 25th in EPA per dropback, and an average opponent passer rating, 107.4. That's in weeks 1 through 5. Since then, in weeks 6 through 15, third in EPA per play, fourth in EPA per dropback, and an average opponent pass rating of 78. So the Vikings, since week 6, have been a top 5, maybe even a top 3 pass defense. Now, we do have to mention that Jake Browning did just have a solid day throwing the ball against Minnesota last week. 324 yards, 7.7 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, a pick, and a 97 passer rating. But we do also have to note that Browning's been really good against the blitz. I mean, heading into last week's game, he was like top 3, top 4 in the league when blitzed. That's not the case with Jared Goff. He is much better when he's not blitzed. But here's the thing with the Lions offense right now. Even if you don't fully trust Goff, that run game has been serious. I mean, over their last 8 games, the Lions are averaging 153 rush yards per game, 5.52 yards per carry. This run game's been cruising. Now, you might be thinking, they play the Vikings, though. Minnesota's got a great run defense. They'll shut that run game down. Minnesota's on the season 9th in run defense DVOA, 15th in adjusted line yards, 4th in yards per carry allowed. And yeah, I see your point. Minnesota does have a great run defense, but you know what? So do the Chicago Bears, and Detroit just ran the ball all over the Bears twice, who are probably a better run defense than the Vikings. Or, I mean, it's close, but I'd say slightly better. I don't know if there's any run defense out there that can stop the Lions' rushing attack right now. Situational stats on this side of the ball. Edge goes to Detroit on third downs. They're 7th offensively on third downs. Vikings defense 23rd. Kind of a wash in the red zone. The Lions offense has been very good in the red zone, but so has the Minnesota defense. Now let's flip it over to the other side of the ball, and we'll start with this Lions pass defense, and good Lord. Somehow they were able to hold Russell Wilson down, 223 yards, 56% completions, 1 touchdown, no picks, and an 88 passer rating. That was the Lions' first decent defensive performance against a quarterback in who knows how long. I mean, this pass defense has fallen off a cliff. In weeks 1 through 6, the Lions pass defense, 7th in EPA per play, 9th in EPA per dropback, 12th in success rate per dropback. In weeks 7 through 15, 27th, 30th, and 30th. So since week 7, the Detroit Lions have been bottom 2 or 3 pass defense in the NFL. Now they get to see Nick Mullins, who had kind of an up and down day, making his first start last week since 2021. The good news is he was throwing the ball very efficiently. Completed 78.8% of his passes, 9.2 yards per attempt. He was getting the ball downfield. He threw for a couple touchdowns, 99.9 passer rating. Mullins was pretty good. That's the good news. The bad news is those 2 picks were disgusting. I mean, he threw a couple interceptions and they were so bad. The first one was just such a terribly thrown ball. He missed his target and underthrew his target at the same time. On the second one, he was like falling backwards and like threw the ball to nobody, and he actually threw it right to the defensive tackle. I think it was BJ Hill. It was ugly as hell. I had Bengals -3 in that game, so I loved it, but those are some ugly looking picks. Now, we do have to take note that that game was against the Bengals, and Cincinnati's just the interception kings this year. I think they're 3rd or 4th in interceptions per game, 6th in takeaways per game. Cincinnati has been great at forcing turnovers this year. The Lions only have 1 interception in the last 5 games, so maybe there's some positive regression coming here. Maybe they just played a defense that's great at forcing turnovers, and we'll see Mullins have a good performance here, because other than those 2 picks, he was very good against that Bengals defense. And the Lions defense, like we just mentioned, terrible against the pass, or at least it has been. But what about the Lions defense against the run? I mean, it's also fallen off, not quite as much as the pass defense, but kind of the same story here. Weeks 1 through 6, they were 5th in rushing success rate, just 64.6 rush yards per game, 3.26 yards per carry, looking like one of the best run defenses in the NFL. Since week 7, I mean, it's not like the pass defense where it's one of the worst in the NFL. They're still 15th in success rate, 119 rushing yards per game, 4.1 yards per carry. I mean, it's pretty middle of the pack now compared to what they were in the beginning of the season, which was excellent. And that's going to be a big matchup here. I mean, can Minnesota get the run game going? It's interesting because in the last 6 games, Vikings have been running the ball. On their last 6 games, they're averaging 132 rush yards per game, 4.44 yards per carry. In the 4 games before that, just 2.73 yards per carry. Now, in the last 6 games, 4 of their 6 opponents have been bottom 10 run defenses, though. So maybe they played some easy opponents, but I don't know. That Vikings run game has looked pretty solid with Ty Chandler getting the carry. So I think the Vikings are going to be able to run the ball a little bit here. Situational stats on this side of the ball, no leans at all. It's a wash on third downs, wash in the red zone. As far as betting this game, I'm going to be on Minnesota here, but I don't absolutely love it. I really wish I got in at 3.5 or 4. As long as it's a full +3 or higher, I'll play Minnesota. I think they have a chance to win the game outright. So give me the Vikings +3, but I doubt this one makes my top bets. Next game, Washington Commanders on the road in MetLife. Jets are laying 3 points at home here, and the total sitting at 37. Looking like the public's pretty split on this one also. Data is showing sharp action slightly leaning towards Washington. Numbers been sitting pretty steadily at 3 all week, though. Let's talk injuries. Washington's offense first. Brian Robinson ruled out at running back. They're also missing some offensive linemen here. Left tackle is out. Center is out. They've also got some injuries to the depth of the offensive line as well. So that run game, which is already kind of a struggling unit, probably going to be really hindered in this one. On the defensive side of the ball, Derek Forrest still out at safety. He's missed over 2 months now. The guy who's been getting a ton of playing time in his spot, Percy Butler, he may not play either. He's listed as questionable. So overall, the Commanders' defense in pretty decent shape injury-wise, but it's really tough to determine who would be the starters because between the trade deadline and the injuries, we don't really know who would be the starters if everyone was healthy. So this is what I think their depth chart would be, but who knows? On the Jets side of things, they're rolling with Trevor Siemian at quarterback for this one. Connor McGovern also going to be missing from the offensive line. Dwayne Brown may return from injury, but I'm not even sure if he has a starting job anymore. Kind of the same story as the Washington defense between all the injuries and the position switches. Yeah, Mekhi Becton was at right tackle to start the season. Then he was playing left when Dwayne Brown went down. So if Dwayne Brown's back, does Becton move back to right tackle? Plus, I mean, they've had injuries to the interior offensive line. It's kind of hard to determine who's hurt and who would be starting if they were healthy. So yeah, the Jets offensive line's been a mess all year. We'll leave it at that. Couple question marks on the Jets defense here. Jordan Whitehead most likely going to play at safety. He hasn't missed a practice all week. Franklin Myers, though, he's the opposite. He missed every single practice this week, so I think there's a good chance he's going to sit out this one. Didn't really go too deep into this game yet. I don't know if I'll even place a bet on it. I guess I'd lean Jets with the Washington offense looking the way it does, and I don't anticipate they'll have a run game in this one, which means Sam Howell's going to have to be effective through the air, and as we've seen this year, nobody comes into MetLife Stadium and throws the ball. I mean, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, you name it, good quarterbacks have come into this stadium and can't throw the ball in this defense, so how do we expect Sam Howell with no run support to have a good game? So I guess I'd lean Jets, but at a full 3, if I see a Jets -2.5 pop up, I will buy. But as of right now, I'm saying Jets or pass. Next game, Green Bay on the road in Carolina. This number's down to 4. Carolina is now catching 4 at home, that number's been bet down from 5. Total sitting at 37.5. This one's definitely shaping up to be a pros versus public setup here. Public definitely on the Green Bay Packers. Sharp action definitely on Carolina. This line did get up to 5, and it was at 5 for a couple days this week, but looks like on Friday it was bet back down to 4, and it looks like I'm seeing nothing but 4s across the board now. Injuries. Green Bay's offense has some question marks here. Bakhtiari and Musgrave are not new. They both missed serious time. Christian Watson listed as doubtful at wide receiver. Also at wide receiver, Wicks, Jaden Reed, both questionable. A.J. Dillon, also questionable. I think Dillon and Wicks are going to play, though, but Jaden Reed hasn't practiced all week, so I think there's a good chance he sits. Green Bay's defense has injuries everywhere, same as every single week this season. Devondre Campbell, out. Darnell Savage, out. Rudy Ford and Jair Alexander, both questionable in the secondary. And both these guys have been on and off the field all year, so it's just a coin flip on whether or not they're going to play. And Alexander, even if he does play, hasn't been 100%. He's having probably the worst year of his career, so the Green Bay secondary is an absolute mess, same as it's been all year. Carolina offensively going to be missing Corbett at guard again. He hasn't played since week 11. Shenault also out at wide receiver. But other than that, Carolina's offense is in pretty good shape here injury-wise. Panthers defense, brace yourself for this, is healthy. Shaq Thompson is still out. He hasn't played since week 2, so he's out. But other than that, J.C. Horn, Xavier Woods, Von Bell, Jeremy Chin, all those guys have missed pretty serious time. Well, Xavier Woods just missed a couple games, but all the other 3 have missed serious time in that secondary this year. All back, all healthy, none of them on the injury report. You'll love to see it. So let's match these two teams up on the field, and we'll start with the Green Bay passing offense. Jordan Love, been really great since week 9, as I'm sure you've heard. Since week 9, 6th in EPA per play, 3rd in EPA per dropback, 5th in success rate per dropback, 104 passer rating, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. Jordan Love's really been playing well. But how does he match up against this Carolina defense? For starters, the Panthers run a lot of zone coverage, and Love not nearly as good against zone coverage. Against man coverage, Jordan Love is 7th in passer rating, 3rd in touchdown rate. Against zone, 24th and 18th, so definitely not as efficient against zone. What else do we know about this Panthers defense? They blitz a lot, 5th in the NFL in blitz rate. It's not necessarily bad news for Jordan Love. He's been pretty solid against the blitz. You can see from these numbers here, pretty average numbers, slightly above average against the blitz. This is amongst 41 qualified quarterbacks, so blitz shouldn't scare you off Jordan Love here. Carolina's pass defense as a whole, if you're looking at numbers from the entire season, pretty average, pretty middle of the pack. They're 17th in DVOA, 15th in opponent passer rating, and 10th in yards per attempt allowed. But this Panthers pass defense has really stepped up as of late. Also, they're much better at home. But since their bye week, so check this out. Since the Panthers bye week, they're 12th in EPA per play against the pass, 15th in success rate per dropback. Before the bye week, the Panthers were 30th and 27th. This Panthers pass defense may not be top 10 numbers-wise, but it's getting close. I like Carolina's defense to give Jordan Love problems in this game. What about the run game, though? Are the Packers going to be able to run the ball in this one? Well, they certainly didn't do shit on the ground last week. 17 carries for 60 yards, just 3.5 yards per carry. But that was against Tampa. The Bucs have had a solid run defense this entire season. If you look at the previous 9 Packers games before the Bucs game, they actually had a pretty efficient rushing attack going. In their previous 9, 120 rushing yards per game, 4.65 yards per carry. So Green Bay had been running the ball. They just didn't run it last week against the Bucs. On the season, the Packers rushing attack is pretty average, maybe below average, slightly below average. 21st in DVOA, 16th in adjusted line yards, 10th in yards per carry. Now, we just talked about how the Carolina defense has really stepped up against the pass since the bye week. Same thing goes for the run defense as well. Before the bye week, the Panthers were dead last. 32nd in rushing EPA per play, 32nd in rushing success rate, allowing 144 rush yards per game on 4.86 yards per carry. That was before the bye week. Since the bye week, 15th, 11th, just 98 rushing yards allowed per game, 3.38 yards per carry. So the Panthers run defense has been great. Well, it's been above average since the bye week. Situational stats on this side of the ball, really not much of an edge on either side. I mean, maybe Packers have a slight edge in the red zone offensively. They're 22nd. The Panthers are 31st, but really not much of an edge. Personally, I think this Carolina defense is undervalued, and I like the way they play at home. Don't sleep on this defense, man. I think they give Green Bay some problems. Now we flip it over to the other side of the ball, and we get to talk about the Green Bay defense, which is struggling, to put it delicately. The pass defense in the last 5 games has really fallen off. In the last 5 games, 10 passing touchdowns to just 1 interception, 27th in EPA per play, 27th in EPA per dropback, an average opponent pass rating of 114. This is after a solid start to the season. Up until that point, their average opponent pass rating was just 84.8, 8 touchdowns, just 5 picks, 18th and 18th in the EPA numbers. So the Packers defense against the pass was pretty good, or at least it was about average up until 5 games ago, and it's just fallen off. Want to know how bad this Green Bay pass defense has been? Last week, Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating. It was the first time an opposing quarterback went on the road into Lambeau Field and had a perfect passer rating in NFL history. I'm pretty sure. I heard that. I was just looking for it. I couldn't find it, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time a quarterback went on the road to Lambeau Field and had a perfect passer rating. Baker Mayfield. But here's the thing. Panthers can't really throw the ball. I mean, actually, they can't throw the ball at all. Probably the worst passing attack in the NFL this year. 32nd in DVOA, 30th in passer rating, 32nd in yards per pass attempt. It's been a struggle for Bryce Young this season. And here's the bad news. Somehow it's even getting worse. I mean, Bryce Young, weeks 1 through 8, had an 83 passer rating, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, 5.6 yards per attempt. I mean, not good. But Bryce Young, weeks 9 through 15, 64 passer rating, 2 touchdowns, 5 picks, 5.1 yards per attempt. I mean, somehow Bryce Young's numbers are getting worse. Now, the good news is Bryce Young is at home and gets to see this Green Bay secondary, which, like I said, is getting cooked right now. And also, Green Bay does not generate pressure, which has been a nightmare. I mean, Bryce Young is arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL under pressure. 42nd, 41st, 29th, and 39th in these metrics, compared to a clean pocket, or, I mean, he's not great, but he's better. 28th, 34th, 18th, and 35th. So on paper, this is a really good spot for Bryce Young to have a good game, but we've seen Bryce Young have spots to have a good game, and he struggled. So proceed with caution on that one. Now, what about the run game? Are the Panthers going to be able to run the ball in this one? Well, Green Bay did a solid job defending the run last week. That was at home at Lambeau, though, where they've been better defending the run. Last week, the Bucs had 27 carries, 99 yards, just 3.7 yards per carry. So a solid defensive performance against the run there. But look at the Packers' 5 games before that, allowing over 170 rushing yards per game, 5.68 yards per carry. I mean, the Green Bay Packers have been getting steamrolled on the ground entering the Bucs game. On the season, Green Bay's run defense, 26th in DVOA, 24th in adjusted line yards, 28th in yards per carry allowed. This is a bad run defense. Now, the good news for Green Bay would be Carolina hasn't been able to run the ball this year. On the season, they're just 26th, 29th, and 24th in those 3 metrics. But I will say, in the last 3 weeks, we're starting to see the Panthers getting the run game going a bit. On their last 3 games, 155 rush yards per game on 4.28 yards per carry. So I know it sounds crazy to count on this Carolina offense for anything. I think they're going to be able to run the ball in this one. And honestly, I think Bryce Young might make a play or two. I mean, this Packers defense is just so bad right now. As far as what I'm betting here, I know you're all going to hate this one. I'm on Carolina again. I've been betting this Panthers team. They came through for me last week. They held the Falcons to just 7 points at home, and that's what I'm saying. I trust this Panthers defense at home, so I think they hold the Packers offense to a respectable number and cover this. Give me Carolina +5. Next game. Cleveland on the road in Houston. Texans are catching 3 points at home here. Total sitting at an even 40. Action's coming in pretty even on this one too. Maybe slightly leaning towards the Texans. This line was at 2.5 early in the week, but it's been sitting mostly at 3 since around Wednesday. Let's talk injuries. Here is an updated Cleveland Browns depth chart. This doesn't show it, but both offensive tackles are out for the season. Deshaun Watson obviously out for the season. Other than that, they've got their left guard listed as questionable. He did practice on Friday, though, so we'll see. Browns defensively are missing Anthony Walker at linebacker. He also missed the Bears game last week. Also, tough injury at safety here for Cleveland. Juan Thornhill has been ruled out. The reason that's significant, Browns are already super thin at safety. Delpit's on the IR. That guy, Rodney McLeod, he's also hurt. So Browns definitely thin at safety in this game. Houston offensively, obviously going to be without CJ Stroud for another game. Tank Dell, obviously on the IR. I think he's out for the season, Tank Dell. I can't remember off the top of my head. Pretty sure he's out. Whatever. He's out for this game. We know that. They're also missing 2 interior offensive linemen. Nico Collins listed as questionable. He's been practicing all week, though, so I think Nico Collins is going to play. Some key pieces missing from the Houston defense as well. Will Anderson is going to miss another game on the edge. I thought he would be back because I thought he had a chance of playing last week. No, he is out for this game. Malik Collins is questionable, which is huge. He had a big game last week against the Titans, but I think he's going to play because he's been practicing all week. Same goes for Perryman at linebacker. He hasn't missed a practice this week either, so he should be good to go. Blake Cashman, though, he's been ruled out. I actually didn't make any graphics for this game, but I can tell you pretty confidently that I'm probably going to roll with the Houston Texans again. I took Houston +3 last week. Got a little lucky to get the cash there, but everyone in the comments was telling me I was nuts for not taking the Titans. They won that game outright, so here they are catching 3 points at home. We know this Cleveland defense. It's a lead at home. They are 7-1 at home. Just 2-4 on the road. And if you look at their game logs on the road, this defense is not nearly the same on the road. So I'm taking the 3 points here. Give me Houston +3. Next game. Indianapolis Colts on the road in Atlanta. This line is now Atlanta -2.5 or 3, depending on your sports book. That number's been bet up because earlier in the week it was sitting at Atlanta -1. Total sitting at 44.5. Action is on Atlanta here. Public slightly leaning towards the Falcons. Data is showing sharp action on the Falcons as well, which would make sense with the line movement. This number was at 1, 1.5, then 2, 2.5, and now I'm seeing 3s pop up. I am wondering if we'll start to see some buyback on the Colts now that 3s are open, but as of right now, I'm not seeing it. Let's talk injuries. Colts missing a couple key pieces on offense. Michael Pittman is out for this game, which is obviously their best receiving threat by far. Braden Smith also going to miss another game at right tackle. This will be the 3rd straight game he's missed. And also, Zach Moss has been ruled out. That's new. That just happened earlier today. But Jonathan Taylor is back. He missed last game, so the Zach Moss injury news doesn't hurt quite as bad. Colts defensively are completely good to go. Everyone is back and healthy for the Colts on defense with the exception of Dallas Flowers. I believe he was ruled out for the season, though, so I took him off the depth chart in this graphic. But Juju Brents is back. Grover Stewart's back. Colts defense is in pretty good shape injury-wise. Falcons offense is in pretty good shape themselves. They're completely healthy with the exception of McGarry at right tackle, or is he right guard? I didn't write it down. He's right tackle or right guard. He's listed as questionable. He practiced on Thursday and Friday, though, so I think he's got a good shot at playing. Pretty sure Desmond Ridder is not injured. He's not listed as injured. I think he just got benched, but for betting purposes, we know that Taylor Heineke has been named the starter for the remainder of the season. There's some injuries on the defensive side as well for Atlanta. Troy Anderson is still out. I think he might be out for the year, actually. He hasn't played since week 3. Grady Jarrett still out also. I mean, I think he's out for the season as well. He hasn't played in 2 months. A couple question marks on the defensive front. Both were practicing Friday, though, so I think both those guys have a chance of playing. So let's match these two teams up on the field, and we'll start with the Colts passing offense. Not as bad as you would expect with Gardner Minshew being your starting quarterback on the season. They're 21st in yards per pass attempt, 19th in DVOA, 12th in adjusted sack rate. And we've seen some improvements. They've been playing pretty well in the last few weeks. You can see in the last 3 weeks, they're averaging 7 yards per pass attempt, 6 touchdowns to 1 interception, a 98 passer rating for Minshew. In the 4 games before that, yards per attempt is down, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, passer rating way down. So Gardner Minshew definitely playing his best football right now. And it definitely helps Gardner Minshew's case knowing that the Falcons don't blitz a lot. Atlanta just 22nd in the NFL in blitz rate. You can see Gardner Minshew has really struggled against the blitz this year. Amongst 41 qualified quarterbacks, when blitzed, Minshew is 37th, 35th, 39th, 38th, and 32nd. Really struggles with the blitz. But when he's not blitzed, amongst those same 41 qualified quarterbacks, 10th, 15th, 20th, 21st, and 15th in those same categories. So the fact that the Falcons do not blitz a lot, music to Gardner Minshew's ears. Falcons pass defense on the year, they are 11th in yards per pass attempt allowed, which is solid. But DVOA numbers have them all the way back at 29th, 28th in adjusted sack rate. Obviously, we know they don't have a pass rush. So advanced metrics say they're not quite as good as the surface level numbers show. But you know what? Just like the Colts passing offense, Falcons pass defense has been pretty good lately. You can see in their last 5 games, just a 76 average passer rating, just 2 passing touchdowns allowed in their last 5 games to 3 picks, 58% completion, 6.7 yards per attempt. Look at their numbers in the 6 games before that. 106 passer rating, 12 touchdowns, 1 pick, 64.7% completion, 7.1 yards per attempt. So the Falcons pass defense has stepped it up in the last 5 games. Now, it is worth mentioning that in those last 5 games, when the Falcons pass defense is putting up great numbers, 4 of those 5 games were against bottom 12 passing attacks. I mean, there's a Tim Boyle Jets game in there, a Bryce Young game. We know how bad that passing attack's been. But you know what? We just saw them play Baker Mayfield and the Falcons. Baker Mayfield just went into Lambeau and had a perfect passer rating. Against Atlanta, just 48% completions, 5 yards per attempt, and an 85 passer rating. So this Falcons pass defense, yeah, they've seen some easy competition recently, but as a whole, they've been solid. But as we know, this is a Colts offense that wants to run the football, especially now since Jonathan Taylor's back on the field. Colts on the season, 15th in yards per carry, 6th in DVOA. So as we know, when healthy, the Colts are probably a top 5 to top 7 rushing attack. But something I've pointed out several times, Colts have pretty extreme splits when it comes to running the football here. You can see at home in Indianapolis, they're 6th in rushing yards per game and 6th in yards per carry. Look at their games away from Indy, 30th and 31st. So this Colts team has really struggled to get the run game going away from Indianapolis. And this is a Falcons defense that's been solid against the run this entire season. This is a top 10 run defense here. They're 7th in yards per carry allowed, 10th in rushing DVOA, 10th in adjusted line yards. And just like the Falcons pass defense, the run defense has also shown improvements recently. In the last 3 games, the Falcons are allowing just 3.5 yards per carry, just 1 rushing touchdown, 4.8 yards per carry, and 3 rushing touchdowns in the previous 3. So as much as everyone's riding high on Gardner Minshew right now in this Colts offense, I think this is a tough spot for them. I think this Falcons defense is going to give them real problems. Situational stats on this side of the ball, edge definitely goes to the Falcons. The Falcons defense have been great in key spots. Third and third down percentage, second in the red zone. Colts offensively, 23rd and 18th. Now let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. And this Colts pass defense hasn't been nearly as bad as you think. For some reason, we all have it in our head that this Colts defense has been terrible. Here are their numbers against the pass on the year. Yeah, they're 20th in yards per pass attempt allowed, but 13th in DVOA, 7th in opponent passer rating. And just like the Falcons defense, this Colts defense has really come alive lately. Through 5 games, they were allowing an average opponent passer rating of 90.3, averaging just 2.6 sacks per game, 9 passing touchdowns allowed to 6 interceptions. Look at their last 6 games. Passer ratings down. Sacks have gone from 2.6 to 4.2. 7 passing touchdowns to 9 interceptions. And as we know, this is not a Falcons passing attack that scares anybody. I mean, Desmond Ritter's been terrible, and now they got Taylor Heineke starting. I mean, like, I guess his stats on the season aren't terrible. 55% completion, 6.7 yards per attempt, 84 passer rating, but there's no way Taylor Heineke's scaring me here. And another thing about this Colts pass defense, they run a lot of zone coverage. Take a look at Taylor Heineke's splits between man and zone here. As you can see, he's been much better against man coverage. Now, a small sample size. Taylor Heineke's only played, what, 4 games, whatever it is. But against man, 103.9 passer rating. Yards per attempt is up. Touchdown rate is way up. Against zone, the numbers are way down. So the fact that the Colts play a lot of zone, definitely a negative angle for Heineke here. But what about running the ball? Because we know the Falcons want to get the run game going. Colts run defense as a whole has definitely been a disappointment this season. Just 23rd in DVOA, 20th in adjusted line yards, 13th in yards per carry allowed. But I'm going to say the same thing here that I said last week. This Colts defense, specifically against the run, night and day difference when Grover Stewart is on the field. In games that he has missed this year, they're allowing 153 rush yards per game on 4.73 yards per carry. When Grover Stewart is active and on the field, just 108 yards on 3.59 yards per carry. He was suspended. I think he was hurt first and then suspended, but he is healthy and active now. And this Falcons run game, remember when we all thought the Falcons were going to have this dynamic rushing attack entering the season? What the hell is going on here? Falcons in their last 3 games, 2.61 yards per carry. 2.61. Just 79 rushing yards per game. I think it's fair to officially declare this Falcons run game a massive failure. I mean, last year they were 3rd in DVOA, 5th in adjusted line yards, 6th in yards per carry. This season, 20th, 23rd, 21st. Like, this did not work. Situational stats on this side of the ball, no edge at all. They're pretty much dead even on 3rd downs and in the red zone. As much as I'd like to trust the Falcons offense here, I can't. I mean, if the run game's not going to be there, and I don't think it's going to, I don't have a ton of faith in Taylor Heineke. I don't trust either offense. I like both defenses in this spot. So obviously I'm leaning under, but the Colts have run such a fast-paced offense this year. It makes betting an under tough. I will say at a full 3, there's no way I'm betting the Falcons. I'm on the Colts at 3. Don't love it, but give me Colts plus 3, and I'm leaning under 44.5. There's I haven't bet this game yet. There's probably a good chance I end up passing here. Next game. Next up, Seattle on the road in Tennessee here. Titans are catching a full 3 points at home. Total sitting at 41.5. It looks like early action was coming in on Seattle at 2.5. But since this number has hit 3, according to the data, this has completely swung the other way. Looks like everyone's starting to come in on the Titans now. Line still seems to be moving the other way, though. So pros out there still betting Seattle. I'm actually seeing a lot of 3.5s pop up. Let's talk injuries. Seahawks getting Geno Smith back at quarterback, which is obviously huge. Kenneth Walker may not play in this one, though. He's listed as questionable. He did miss practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Did participate in a light practice on Friday, though, so we'll see. Seattle's defense does have some injuries, but it's mostly to the depth. As far as the main pieces, the starters, they're in pretty good shape. Nwosu is still out on the edge, but he's been out mostly the entire season. And Diggs, the safety, is listed as questionable. I don't even think he's hurt, though. It says rest, personal reasons or something, so he's listed as questionable. I'm not sure if he's going to play. On the Tennessee side, there are question marks everywhere here. Center, right guard. Although it looks like both of those pieces on the offensive line are going to play. Looking like Will Levis might play. I mean, if you rewind back to Monday, Tuesday, I don't think anybody thought Will Levis was going to play. He missed Wednesday and Thursday's practice, but he was out there on Friday, so it looks like he's got a shot at playing. Westbrook Ikine is out. Okongwu may not play at tight end. He hasn't practiced all week. So the Titans have some issues on offense here. Now we get to the Titans defense, and just wow. The entire secondary is out. The entire secondary, literally all of them. This was already a bad secondary. Then they traded Kevin Byard a few weeks back to the Eagles at the deadline. Now all 5 starters are out. Gibbons is also out at linebacker. Jeffrey Simmons has been ruled out for the year. One of the best players on the entire team, let alone the defense. I think Tart's been ruled out for the year as well at defensive tackle. A guy that would be starting or at least getting a lot of playing time in place of Jeffrey Simmons. His name is TK McClendon. I think he's an undrafted rookie. He's out as well. He's out as well. This Titans defense might be the most injured unit I've ever seen. So let's match these two teams up on the field. As I mentioned, Geno Smith likely to return here. Before the game against the Cowboys, he was in a hell of a slump, man. If you look at his 5 starts before the Dallas game, just 6.7 yards per attempt, barely over 60% completions, 5 touchdowns to 5 picks, just a 75 passer rating. But then he went into Dallas in a primetime game. I mean, Dallas this year has been one of the toughest places for a quarterback to go and put up numbers. He produced, man. He threw the ball really well. 334 yards, 8.1 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, and a 97 passer rating. On the road in Dallas, those are excellent numbers. Now he gets a much more favorable matchup against the Tennessee secondary that hasn't been able to stop anybody through the air. Titans pass defense, one of the worst in the NFL. On the season, they're 27th in DVOA, 27th in opponent passer rating, 25th in yards per attempt, and 27th in completion percentage. The one positive angle for the Titans defense here against the Seahawks passing offense and Geno Smith would be they do generate pressure. Geno Smith really struggles with pressure this year. When pressured on the season, he's 35th in yards per attempt, 30th in big time throw percentage. Compared to when he's kept clean, he's 5th and 2nd in those two categories. But like I said earlier, without Jeffrey Simmons and without Tart on the defensive line, I'm not sure how much we could even rely on the Titans pass rush here. Some good news for Geno Smith. The Titans blitz at the 6th lowest rate in the NFL. They blitz on just 21.9% of their defensive snaps. Geno Smith has been great when not blitzed. When he's not blitzed, he's 7th, 14th, 17th, and 13th in those categories. When blitzed, 32nd, 19th, 26th, and 29th. So yeah, maybe the matchup doesn't look absolutely perfect for Geno Smith because the Titans on paper have a good pass rush, according to the numbers this year, but with the injuries and with all... There's just no way I could trust the Titans to make stops here through the air. But what about the run game? Are the Seahawks going to be able to run the ball here? Seattle's run game's got to be one of the toughest to read in the NFL. I mean, on the season, they're slightly below average. They're 18th in DVOA, 24th in adjusted line yards, 19th in yards per carry. They were able to get the run game going a bit against the Eagles, 24 carries for 100 yards, nothing crazy, but the Eagles have been solid against the run this year, so that's a solid performance. But look at the home-away splits for Seattle's run game here. At home in Seattle, they've been pretty good running the ball, 10th in yards per carry, 16th in rushing yards per game. On the road, 30th and 31st. I mean, they have really struggled to run the ball on the road this year. And remember, there's a chance that Kenneth Walker doesn't play in this game. Charbonnet's been good, but the times we saw him as the premier back when Kenneth Walker was out, he wasn't nearly as efficient. And the Titans defense against the run is solid. I mean, at least when they're healthy, they're solid. On the season, they've got good numbers. They're 7th in yards per carry allowed, 11th in DVOA, 12th in adjusted line yards. But again, without Jeffrey Simmons, without Tart on that defensive line. I mean, the last 2 games we've seen the Titans without Jeffrey Simmons, the Houston Texans, the Miami Dolphins combined for 153 rushing yards per game on 4.86 yards per carry. So that run defense hasn't looked the same without Simmons out there. Situational stats on this side of the ball, the edge definitely goes to Tennessee. Seahawks offensively have been terrible in key spots. 27th on third down, 26th in the red zone. Titans defense 10th on third down, 1st in the red zone. Titans have the best red zone defense in the NFL on paper. Overall, like I said about Geno Smith, this Seahawks offense, on paper, this isn't a good matchup for them on the road in Tennessee, but with all these injuries, there's just no way I can count on this Titans defense. No way. Now, what about the other side of the ball? What about the Seahawks defense? And we'll start with their defense against the pass. This year's been a pretty massive disappointment this season, despite tons of talent out there. They're 26th in pass defense DVOA, 18th in opponent passer rating, 18th in yards per attempt allowed. But you know what? We just saw this Seahawks defense make Jalen Hurts look pretty terrible. Jalen Hurts, just 143 yards, 54.8 completions, 4.6 yards per attempt, 2 picks, a 40 passer rating. Just Jalen Hurts. So maybe this Seahawks defense is turning a corner late in the season here. And it's crazy because if you look at the 6 games before that Eagles game, the Seahawks pass defense was 31st in EPA per play, 31st in success rate against the pass, 28th in EPA per drop back. I mean, to be fair, look who they played. They had a really tough schedule here. The Cowboys, the 49ers twice, the Rams, the Commanders, and the Ravens. All, I mean, 5 of those 6 are dynamic offenses. And even the Commanders have a dangerous offense at times. So Definitely 5 of those games were against top 10 offenses, so take their numbers here with a grain of salt. As far as the Titans passing offense, they're certainly not scaring anybody, whether it's going to be Will Levis, whether it's going to be Ryan Tannehill. On the season, they're 21st in DVOA, 24th in passer rating. But one thing you do have to give the Titans passing offense credit for, when they do connect, it's usually pretty explosive. They're 6th in yards per completion and 9th in yards per attempt. So when they do complete passes, it's usually down the field. But the thing is, that kind of plays into the strength of this Seahawks defense, because actually, the Seahawks, despite having pretty bad numbers defensively against the pass this year, they're actually top 10 against the deep ball, DVOA-wise. Seahawks versus the deep ball, 8th in DVOA, versus the short pass, 20th. So as a whole, as bad as the Seahawks pass defense has been, they've seen a grueling stretch of schedule. I like the matchup. I think they give Will Levis all kinds of problems, or Tannehill. And I like how they've been better against the deep pass, something the Titans have done a lot of. So I like the matchup for the Seattle pass defense here. As far as stopping the run, though, I mean, again, this unit has been disappointing. Through the first 5 games, the Seahawks are allowing just 3.17 yards per carry, 7th in rushing EPA, 3rd in success rate. But in the 9 games since then, they're back at 32nd in rushing EPA, 32nd in success rate, over 5 yards per carry allowed. So this run defense has been just such a disappointment. But I have great news for the Seattle Seahawks. This Titans run game is in a terrible place right now. Over their last 4 games, the Titans are averaging just 3.25 yards per carry, 101 rush yards per game. They're 28th in success rate and 19th in EPA per carry. If you take the numbers from the whole season, the Titans run game has been okay. They're 16th in DVOA, 20th in adjusted line yards, 22nd in yards per carry. But the last handful of games, I mean, they're falling off a cliff here. We're trying to run the ball. Situational stats on this side of the ball, edge goes to no one because they're all terrible. Seahawks defense has been really bad on key downs and in the red zone. Titans offense, same thing. So no edge at all there. As far as what I'm betting here, look, straight up, there's just no way I can back this Titans defense in any way, shape, or form right now. I know it's insanely square, but I don't see how the Titans make stops here with all those injuries to the defense. They got like 5th and 6th string defensive backs out there. So yeah, give me Seattle -3. I already grabbed this at 3 just in case it all moves to 3.5 next game. Jacksonville is on the road in Tampa to play the Bucks. Bucks are catching one at home now. This line's been moving. It was all the way up to Bucks -3, but then the Trevor Lawrence news, it moved 4 points. This total is sitting at 43. Line movement in this one is pretty simple. Like I said, looks like the action was kind of split early on. Line moved all the way up to Tampa Bay -3, but then it was announced that Trevor Lawrence is probably going to play, and now it seems like everyone's coming in on the Jags. Like I said, this line's moved 4 points. The Bucks are now home underdogs here. I'm skipping this one. All the notes we prepared for this game, we were expecting Trevor Lawrence not to play. So now that he's playing, like, all the notes and graphics we have for this game are just no good. So I'm probably going to bet the Bucks, though. Seems like everyone's flooding it on Jacksonville. I'm going to wait it out. Hopefully grab a Tampa Bay +2.5. Bucks really need this game, certainly a lot more than Jacksonville does. So, yeah, give me Tampa Bay, but I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to try to get a Bucks +2 next game. Dallas on the road in Miami, probably the best game of the week here. Dolphins are now laying 2. This number was bouncing around 1 and 1.5 for a while. It's now at Miami -2. Total is sitting all the way up at 49.5. Public's looking pretty split even on this one. Like I said, line was bouncing back and forth between 1 and 1.5 most of the week. It's now up to 2. According to the data we're seeing here, sharp action is on Dallas, but obviously there's pros out there betting Miami, or else the line wouldn't have moved up to 2. Couple injuries to the offensive line for Dallas here. Left tackle Tyron Smith is out. That guy Doga, though, he's going to start in his spot, and he's been pretty good, the opportunities he's gotten, so I don't think there's a huge drop-off there. But Zach Martin listed as questionable. That's significant. He did practice on Thursday, so we'll see, or on Friday, so we'll see. That'd be a huge loss for Dallas. Cowboys defense also has some injury issues here. No Trayvon Diggs and Van Der Esch. Now, obviously, those aren't new. They've missed significant time, and I believe both of them are out for the season. But Hankins still not back at defensive tackle. He didn't play in the Buffalo game, and he was missed. Just take a look at the Buffalo Bills rushing numbers in that game to find out just how much he was missed. Malik Hooker also listed as questionable back at safety. He's been practicing, though, so I think he's going to play. Miami offensively still going to be without Robert Hunt at guard. Austin Jackson also listed as questionable at left tackle. Obviously, the big one here is Tyreek Hill. He's listed as questionable. He did practice on Thursday and Friday, and this is a huge game for Miami. If they lose this one, that final game of the season against Buffalo is basically a play-in for the division title. So I would imagine Tyreek Hill probably plays here. On the defensive side, Miami still without Jerome Baker at linebacker. He hasn't played in 2 or 3 weeks now. Jalen Phillips also remains out on the edge. He's one of their better edge rushers. He hasn't played in about a month now. A couple question marks in the Dolphins secondary as well, but both Holland and Xavier Howard both have been practicing this week, so I think they're both going to play. So let's match these two teams up on the field, and obviously we'll start with the Cowboys passing offense, and Dak Prescott was flying sky high heading into that matchup against Buffalo. Heading into that game, in the 7 games prior to the Buffalo Bills game, Cowboys offense was averaging 38.1 points per game. During that span, Dak Prescott had 22 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions, a 120 average passer rating. He was elite. The Cowboys passing offense had moved up to 2nd in EPA per dropback, 2nd in EPA per pass play, and 1st in success rate per dropback. So what on earth happened in Buffalo? Dak Prescott was 21 of 34, 134 yards, no touchdowns and a pick, a 57.7 passer rating. I mean, let's give some credit to the Buffalo defense. This is a Buffalo defense that just shut down Patrick Mahomes the week before that. They seem to be catching their groove, so I can't exactly fault them. Also, the weather was terrible, and they were coming off a huge win over the Eagles. But it's getting kind of hard to ignore these home-away splits from Dak Prescott here. I mean, these are night and day different. Dak Prescott at home in Dallas this year, 74% completions, 8.5 yards per attempt, 20 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 122.5 passer rating. The Cowboys offense at home, 39.9 points per game. Look at the comparison to the numbers on the road. I mean, completion percentage down, yards per attempt way down, touchdowns, interception way worse, passer rating way down. Points per game, Cowboys 21.7 on the road. And not only are they on the road, they're up against the Dolphins pass defense that's taken a huge step forward since Jalen Ramsey returned from injury. Since Jalen Ramsey has been back on the field for the Dolphins, or on the field for the Dolphins, I should say, they're 1st in EPA per play, 2nd in success rate, 1st in EPA per dropback. Up until that point in the season, before Ramsey took the field, they were 23rd, 27th, and 18th in those 3 categories. Couple things to mention here, though. Since Jalen Ramsey returned, look at who they've played. Mac Jones, they did play Mahomes, but Mahomes was pretty good in that game, and the Chiefs won. Aiden O'Connell, Tim Boyle, Sam Howell, Will Levis, and Zach Wilson. So we do have to take these elite Dolphins passing numbers with a grain of salt, because other than Mahomes, they've played some of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. On the season, though, this Dolphins pass defense is climbing towards the top. They're up to 12th in pass defense DVOA, 9th in opponent passer rating, and 7th in yards per pass attempt allowed. I'm personally calling BS with some of these numbers. Not that I think the Dolphins pass defense is bad, but when you play quarterbacks like that, your numbers are going to be inflated. We saw what happened when they played Mahomes, who, by the way, isn't even having that great of a season. And Mahomes had pretty good numbers. I think he had like a 105 passer rating in that game. So Dak Prescott coming off the loss. I know he's on the road. I expect the Cowboys to make plays through the air here. But what about on the ground? Can we count on the Cowboys to get the run game going here? Good news, the Cowboys have slowly but surely been establishing the run here. Through the first 8 games, they were averaging just 3.9 yards per carry, 111 rush yards per game. They were 15th in EPA per rush. In the 6 games since then, though, their last 6 games, up to 4.51 yards per carry, and they're 6th in EPA per rush. It's a tough matchup for the Cowboys on the ground, though, because the Miami run defense has been solid this whole season. Basically, what happened is they got run all over in week 1 against the Chargers. It was Joshua Kelly and Eckler that went off on the Dolphins defense. But in the 13 games since then, since week 2, the Dolphins are allowing just 3.44 yards per carry and 79 rush yards per game. This is a very good run defense. Situational stats on this side of the ball, edge definitely goes to Dallas. Cowboys are 2nd in 3rd down percentage, 15th in the red zone. Dolphins defense 11th on 3rd downs and 27th in the red zone. The Dolphins defense is struggling in the red zone. Overall, on this side of the ball, I expect the Cowboys to score. I mean, I know everyone's looking at those home away splits, but the fact that the Cowboys are coming off a loss, I think, plays a big part in it. I expect Dak Prescott to run a touchdown in. I feel like he always rushes a touchdown in after a Cowboys loss. So I'll probably throw that prop down as well. Now, on the other side of the ball, obviously we know the Cowboys defense against the pass is elite. But you know what? Just like their passing offense, their passing defense also not as productive on the road. At home, they're 5th in passer rating, 2nd in takeaways per game, 3rd in points per game allowed. But on the road, 18th, 27th, and 13th. Here's the kicker, though. If you're betting the Cowboys in this matchup, this is your main angle. Tua, as we've seen last year and this year, struggles under pressure. When Tua is given a clean pocket, he's almost unbeatable. Second in yards per attempt, second in completion percentage, first in passer grade, second in passer rating. That's when he's given a clean pocket. When pressured, 22nd, 34th, 20th, and 29th. You want to know how to stop this Miami Dolphins offense? Put pressure on Tua. And is there any better team to put pressure on a quarterback than the Cowboys? I mean, that's what they do. But here's the thing. As awesome of an angle as that is for the Cowboys defense, here's another thing the Cowboys defense does. They run a lot of man coverage, and Tua in this Dolphins passing attack has destroyed man coverage. Tua against man, second in passer rating, second in net yards per attempt, second in touchdown rate. Against zone, he's back at 5th, 4th, and 16th. So he's still been good against zone. But Tua, when given time against man coverage, is unbeatable. Cowboys pass rush has to be there. And again, this game's being played in Miami, and Tua, just like Dak Prescott, considerably better at home. At home, he's got a 114 passer rating, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks, 35.9 points per game. That's what the Dolphins are averaging at home. On the road, the passer rating drops, touchdown to interception is worse, yards per attempt slightly drops, completion percentage drops, points per game down to 27.1. So it really comes down to the Cowboys pass rush. If the pass rush is working, I can see Tua struggling. If it's not, Dolphins are going to put up points here. But we also need to talk about this Cowboys run defense, because if you watched last week, holy shit. The Bills had 49 carries for 266 yards in that game. They got ran on so badly that Buffalo put up 31 points on them. Josh Allen didn't even throw for 100 yards in the game. And in fact, this is developing into a pattern here. Through the first 8 games, the Cowboys were allowing just 4 yards per carry on 108.9 yards per game. In the last 6, it's up to 4.6 yards per carry, 129 yards per game. So the Cowboys run defense trending in the wrong direction. And as I mentioned before, Hankins is hurt. That's their D tackle. He's right in the middle of that, a huge piece of the run defense. And just like the Cowboys pass defense, run defense has been more vulnerable on the road. At home, Cowboys are allowing just 86.6 rushing yards per game on 3.8 yards per carry. On the road, 4.6 yards per carry and 148 rushing yards per game. I do have some good news, though, for the Cowboys defense against the run here. The Dolphins' rushing attack has completely cooled off. Through the first 6 games, they were on pace to break records. The Dolphins were averaging 181.8 rushing yards per game on 6.49 yards per carry through the first 6 games of the season. But look in the 8 games since then, just 108 rushing yards per game on 3.98 yards per carry. So they've actually been averaging less than 4 yards per carry in their last 8. Situational stats on this side of the ball, edge goes to Miami. On both third downs and in the red zone. Cowboys are back at 22nd defensively in the red zone. Dolphins are second. I think the handicap's pretty clear that Miami's the play here. There's a lot more positive angles for the Dolphins than there is the Cowboys. I'm betting Dallas, though. And look, you're more than welcome to fade me on this one. Like I said, the numbers point towards Miami, but I think Dallas is the more complete team, and I just trust them coming off the loss. Plus, I'm going to be watching this game with my family, and they're all Cowboys fans, so I'd like to root with them. Taking the Cowboys +2, probably also bet the Cowboys money line, but like I said, if you want to follow the numbers here, Miami's probably the play. I actually ran out of time. It's after 2 a.m. now. I don't have time to get to the last 2 games, but taking the Cardinals at +4 against the Bears, I actually think they have a shot to win that game outright. Sunday Night Football, I haven't placed a bet yet. I'm going to post it on the website. I haven't really decided. I guess at 7.5, I might be leaning Patriots. I really don't know. Probably play an under or something, but I'll post it on the website. I'll post everything on the website. I'll put my top bets on there, parlays of the day, same stuff I post every single week. That'll be up on KyleKirms.com or the Sauce Network app. Let's have ourselves a great Sunday. Let's finish off this week strong. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.